Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading property experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, and Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the 2014 and 2015 Property Investment Advisors of the Year.
All right, folks, you're on the Property Couch for each week. Ben and I bring you the insider's guide to property finance and money management. Good morning.
G'day.
Just trying to mix it up.
I know.
Okay, how you going, mate?
Welcome to the couch.
Welcome
It's
to
like,
the
oh,
couch.
it's good. It's good.
Good morning.
Good morning. Budget week, federal budget. Sorry to interrupt. I know, but it's budget time. I get excited about this sort of stuff. But hey, we've got such a special guest.
Very special guest today, Ben.
Yes. Don't say that very often either, do you? So, let's put budget on to next week's episode.
But you know what? I am conscious last week. Our introduction was 10 minutes. We banged on a bit about sport at the beginning. So I'm not going to drag it out today.
We're going to be sharp today.
Sharp into it. So a couple of quick housekeepings. We are writing the book, Ben.
Yes.
I'm very keen. A few people have reached out to us, which is unbelievably good.
Awesome.
Transformation. If you've had transformation with Money Smarts and you want to provide us a testimonial, that will appear in our book. Let us know, info at the Property Couch. And also, if you've got any money hacks that helps you get your money into the offset account longer, into the Money Smart system, we want to hear from you because we will also feature that in the book. So, folks, we want to hear from you. And also, I was going to say save the date, Ben, but we're not 100% specific on the actual date. But in June, we're going to do a TPC live event in Sydney.
Oh, no, I'm coming out with the date.
Are you?
Are we? I'm coming out with the date.
Yeah, we've got a meeting this afternoon to confirm all this, Ben. So
It's the 8th.
all right.
8th of 7th. Oh,
It's the
I just
8th
heard
of
Ivis
7th.
there. We got it. See, that was a strategy to hear Ivis's voice.
Yeah, you should cut it out.
It's Thursday the 7th.
Thursday the 7th. All right.
Thursday the
It's
7th.
95% to be confirmed next week. 95% Thursday the 7th of whatever the month was.
June.
June. That's it. June. So TPC Live, we want to meet.
Yep.
We want to meet everyone, Ben. So come along to that. Where's the venue? To be advised.
To be advised.
There we go. All right.
It'll be in Sydney.
Well, that's specific. That's what I like about you, mate.
Sydney.
Mine's a
Opera
minute
House,
today.
maybe.
People lose their way when they lose their why. Go Hyatt. So I've thought about that a bit lately because if you sort of don't have anything that's magnetically drawing you towards something, like we're lucky in our business, Ben, we're drawn towards making a difference in people's financial lives. So that keeps us going, doing what we're doing.
Absolutely.
But for the listeners and in your own personal life, if you have lost sight of what it is that you're aiming for, you can get distracted along the way. But I've never met someone who's got good, strong goals, Ben, who gets distracted by the minutiae. They never sweat the small stuff because they know where they're going. So that's my mindset minute.
You can have a moment of weakness.
Yes.
On your vision.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can. It's okay. We all have that, don't we?
You too.
Well, of course.
Surely not.
Well, when it's 2 a.m. in the morning and you've still got a little bit more work to do, and you're thinking, wow, okay, I've got a lot of. You can sometimes say, oof.
You're the hardest working, most successful person I know. Most people who are as successful as you, they get to bed a bit earlier than you.
Yeah, no.
But I must admit, you.
Well, you've got to be across a few things these days.
There is a theory that the most powerful hours of sleep you get are the sleep that you get before midnight. You probably don't know about that. Let's just be honest. So
what are they?
So think about that. People lose their way when they lose their why, Ben. But let's get straight into it. We've got a great guest today. We recorded this a little bit earlier today,
Yes.
Ben. Really great interview with John Lindeman.
I can just hear listeners going, oh, John Lindeman.
Yeah.
All of those people who know property know who John Lindeman are. All of those people who might be new to property are going to go, who's John Lindeman? So it's good. You're
great
going to get
pedigree.
the whole...
When you hear the interview, Ben, there's... The thing that we talk about, this is what we love, is getting people on the podcast who have been investing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been investing for 5 minutes and chanced upon success. It's the people that have been doing it for a long time, and John is one of them.
Yeah,
so.
and he's a thought leader. He's looked at the data and he's made his recommendations and his algorithms and his research around the data.
Some good insights.
Some great insights.
All right, let's cut to the interview now. All right, Ben, so the special guest we've got today is John Lindeman. John spent well over 10 years professionally researching the housing market with major data providers and revealed the secrets of his discoveries in his best-selling books, Mastering the Australian Housing Market and Unlocking the Property Market. His monthly column on housing market research featured in the Australian Property Investor magazine for 5 years, and he's now a regular contributor to your property investment. Your investment property magazine. Could I get it right, Ben?
Yeah, sure. No, Yip as the trade calls it. Yep.
And his commentary is well sought after by numerous other media outlets. John, welcome to the couch.
Thank you very much, Bryce. It's great to be here, and hello, everyone.
So it's obviously, John, I've been, reading your columns for many, many years. I'm a student, I continue to keep learning around people's insights into how the market operates. So I'm really keen to get into that later on. But I think we'll probably start with the backstory first. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you've become one of Australia's leading property research analysts. Tell us a bit about that journey.
Where did it all start, John?
Where it all started was in Melbourne when I was about 20 years old, and I bought a terrace house in Hawthorn, and it doubled in price in about 3 years after I bought it.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. Property investing is the way to go. I bought another house after that, and it didn't go up in price at all. And I thought, I don't understand how the market works. I lost a lot of money in the second investment.
So you've got to tell us where that one was. I mean, Hawthorn's a great leafy east suburb. Where was the second one, just to sort of put context around that?
It was in Mentone.
Okay,
Yeah, because I'm from Sydney, and I wanted to live near the beach and have my kids grow up near the beach, and so I thought I'll buy this house. We spent quite a bit of money and time renovating it, and then we had to move again due to work commitments, and it didn't go up at all. And I thought, I don't really understand how this works at all. Sometimes prices go up and sometimes they don't, and I wanted to find out how it worked. So I read every single book I could find on the property market, and I went to workshops and seminars and boot camps and everything, and listened to all the experts, and they told me a lot about the market, but none of them actually told me exactly how it worked. And so that I started to make that my life commitment to understand the market, why prices rise and why they fall, and how you can predict them with a reasonable degree of confidence.
And in terms of your academics, did you study anything in tertiary, or what's how did you get into research itself?
Well, my tertiary qualifications are related to both marketing and statistics. So, and there's a lot of statistics in marketing.
Yes.
So it's all about numbers. So I found that looking at the housing market in a marketing way, like looking at the numbers and why things change, suddenly made sense to me. And I think it's the reason a lot of economists get it wrong, because they look at it from the wrong perspective.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, and let's sort of explain that to the listeners. When the economists do look at it, why are they getting it wrong? So what is it that you think that they're looking at, and what do you think it is that they're missing?
They're looking at the broad brush indicators such as employment and economic performance and so on. And I remember when I went to your office and I saw this graph where you had Hobart being the best performer ever of any capital city in 2004-05. And at that time, it had the highest unemployment rate in mainland Australia, apart from Western Australia. It was an economic basket case. And I thought, why was that? Why did it do that? And that's why economists can't really predict those sorts of things, because they're looking at those sorts of indicators and they miss the ones that really matter, which are supply and demand.
Fantastic. So we're still in your backstory here. This is your personal journey we're talking about, but from a career point of view, you also found yourself in the industry. Tell us about that journey.
I joined the ABS, and I spent 5 years there researching the housing market. And what I learned at the ABS was a thing called trend analysis, and that is looking at trends and being able to interpret the future by looking at the way things are trending. And I applied that to the housing market, and I discovered that the same laws apply. I then went to Residex, and I was the head of research there for a number of years, where I put that into practice, and I discovered that you can actually quite accurately predict where prices and when prices and rents are likely to rise and fall. Now, I left Residex in 2010, and then I set up my own business where I set up a database which could enable me to make these sorts of predictions independently.
Fantastic. And what's that database called for listeners to understand?
It's the Property Power database. So we collect all the leading indicators such as the number of sales, the number of listings, rental vacancies, asking prices, for every suburb in Australia. So there's 15,000 suburbs. We collect all that data, and then we do a trend analysis, which is called, for those who are mathematically minded, regression analysis, which works out where and when prices and rents are likely to rise and fall. And we've discovered that it's over 90% accurate in terms of short-term price and rent prediction.
So in simple terms, what we're saying is that, past history is a reasonably good indicator in some respects to future performance, or is it a little bit more complex than that?
It's a bit more complex because what we're looking at is the way things are trending. So it doesn't necessarily mean, for instance, when Hobart boomed in 2004 or 5, that it was going to do that again, unless the same economic indicators and the same housing market indicators were replicated, and that occurred last year. So it doesn't necessarily just rely on the past. It also looks at the way things are trending.
So we're going to delve into that shortly, John. But that terrace house in Hawthorn doubled in 3 years. Did that just spark an enthusiasm for building your own sort of personal wealth and journey through property, or did the Mentone property put a bit of a handbrake on that, or was that just a blip on the radar and you kept going?
Well, if I'd bought the Mentone house first, I'd probably be a retired school teacher now with no investment properties at all. So I was very lucky that I bought the Hawthorn house first and the market doubled, and I thought, yes, it does do that. I just need to work out why. So that was the reason I stuck to it.
Now, with that as a segue, the why, and you talked about before, you went to the ABS and you went to Residex, and it was all about predicting the markets. Without sort of giving us your, every bit of your secret sauce, what are the things that you uncovered? What are some of the things that our listeners can take away from your many, many years of doing this? What are the trends? What are the indicators? What are the things that they should be focused on from your perspective?
I think the most important thing of all is to look at the right indicators, and it doesn't cost you any money to do that. If you look at the number of listings, that is properties for sale, say houses or units in a suburb, and if the number of listings is going up, then that's a bad sign, and it means that the market's likely to go bad. And it's the same with rental markets. If you look at rental vacancies, and you can do that simply by going to realestate.com.au or Domain, and looking at the number of rental vacancies in a suburb, if they're going up, that means rents are likely to fall. And there is a sort of tipping points with those that we've worked out where you can actually measure when that tipping point has been reached.
And are you combining those tipping points to set your triggers in terms of your good, your bads and your uglies in regards to your market analysis?
Exactly. What we do is we look at in terms of supply and demand, to put it very, very simply, we look at the number of sales that have occurred in the last year. So house sales in Hawthorn might be a good example. So you look at the number of sales that have occurred in the last year for houses or for units, and let's say it's 200 sales in the last year, and you look at the number of listings, the properties that are currently on the market, and let's say it's 200. So that means that in theory, there's about a year's worth of stock available on the market right now. And that's how the whole system works. So we say if that's the case, and we've worked this out, statistically, it means that prices are not going to go up or down. So if you've got about a year's stock, it means the market is stable. It's what we call a neutral market. But if you've got heaps and heaps, let's say you're looking at a place like Moranbah a few years ago, where you might have had 20 sales and 200 listings, it means you've got 10 years worth of stock on the market. And that's why prices would be falling, because nobody wants to buy and everybody's trying to sell. And in boom markets, it's the other way around. So you find that a few years ago in Sydney and Melbourne, you might have had 10 properties listed for sale and 100 sold in the last year. So it's a very simple device to use. It's very accurate.
Yep. So just on that point, in terms of how do you then factor in future stock? So how do you sort of put any overlays on? Do you look at the ABS data around building permits coming through and how they're recorded to see? Because obviously that's what we do get with regards to apartments, and that's always the riskier one because we can pretty quickly put a couple of hundred apartments in a suburb with one or two developments going in. Do you factor those in when you're looking at your supply and demand equations?
We do. We do that in the database. We look at what we call hidden listings and also hidden supply. That is where an example of that might be, let's say, Russell Island in Brisbane, and that island had a huge overdevelopment years ago. So there's about 6,000 blocks of land that people own that they want to get rid of. And whenever prices start to go up, they put them on the market hoping that they can get rid of them. But when prices go down, they take them off again. So you have this sort of hidden supply that is always sitting there, and that's why when you look at Russell Island, it goes up and, maybe 190, 200,000. It's actually technically part of Greater Brisbane, and it's got the cheapest housing prices in Brisbane. But the reason for that is that there's this huge hidden supply. So we look at that in the database. We know where these areas are, and the same with units. You look at listings, and we've got a team of data analysts who look at all the listings, and they look at, say, a suburb, say like Docklands, and they might see one listing, but when they open that up, it's actually 100 units about to be built. So that's what they factor in.
And that's really important. I mean, when do you move from your analysis of the supply and demand in the market to actually do the field research? Because the same example would apply in newer areas, wouldn't it, where you've got a subdivision happening. Well, the developer's not going to list every one of the 400 lots that they're about to list. They'll probably list 5 or 10. Some being corner blocks, some being court blocks, some being standard blocks. So you'll still have to do that sort of field assessment at some point too, or are you sort of at a stage where you say to your people and obviously your subscribers that anything where there is vacant land, steer clear? What's your view on that?
Well, it depends. As you say, developers will release lots in stages, so they might have stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and it really depends on how quickly they're selling and so on. Most people can't do that sort of analysis. So the easiest way is to look at who the developers or the sellers agents are targeting. If they're targeting investors, then you've got to look at the rent demand for that area, because that's going to hold the key to future price growth. So, if it's an apartment block, say in Docklands, and it's being sold to owner-occupiers, which a lot of them are now, then that doesn't really affect the investor-renter market at all. And so, that's the first key, is to look at, well, who are they selling to? And the way you can work that out pretty quickly is if they offer rent guarantees and so on, then they're obviously targeting investors. But if they offer, as in many developments in Brisbane and Perth are doing right now, they give you the deposit back. So you pay a deposit, so $30,000, and some of them even give you double deposit back. So what happens when you buy the property and you settle, they give you back double what you paid.
Yeah, the rebate system, yeah.
Yeah, plus a holiday in Bali and fully furnished and, all the rest of it.
Run a mile, run 100 miles, get away from that stuff. Isn't that's telling you what your apartment's worth. Yeah.
That's right. So that's how you can have a look and see, well, how desperate are they, and, what are they targeting, what sort of market are they targeting, and do you want to be part of that market?
John, you talked before about having a team, and there's over 15,000 suburbs times 2 with its houses versus units. It's a lot of market to analyse. So what does it look like under the bonnet of your business? Are you relying a lot on technology or human resource, or a combination of both? And if so, what does that look like?
It's a combination of both. We buy a lot of data.
Yep.
And we also do our own research. So when we look at the number of listings and rental vacancies, nobody publishes that sort of information accurately. So, or at least I don't think they do. So we do it ourselves, and we look at the number of listings, as I said, because there are things like hidden listings, hidden supply you've got to take into account. So our researchers look at each suburb. They go through them one by one. We've got a SQL Server database, and so they log in, they look up each suburb in turn, look up the number of listings, the number of rental vacancies, and the median asking rent, and then they work out the median listed asking price, which is what people think they can get for their properties. So that's always a useful guide as well.
John, that sounds like an extraordinary number of hours being invested in human capital there.
It is. We've been doing this for 5 years, so it's a lot of data that we've got for every suburb in Australia, and all of those indicators we've got. And then we've